Dear beloved, welcome back. Here we are again after a little hiatus, so sorry about that. But here I wanted to chat with you guys in the month of November about the saints because we celebrate the saints and souls during this month of November. And before we get into all of the holiday spirit, like I know so many of us are being infiltrated with through the media and social media and things like that, it's good to pause and think back to, okay, what is the church celebrating here this month? And the church is celebrating here this month the saints. And so I wanted to share with you guys my saint tribe. Everyone has their own, right? We have, of course, we honor all of the saints and we wish to emulate them and see their example as influencing our lives. However, naturally, we're going to be attracted to certain ones in particular for whatever reason. Either we relate to them, or they challenge us, or they've been able to share with us something that has changed our lives, or XYZ, right? And so I wanted to share today my Saint tribe. I have a lot of favorites of saints. Favorites is a hard thing for me to narrow down. But just going in order of kind of the timeline of my life a little bit, can help me narrow it down. So the first one that comes to mind is my girl, Saint Therese. Saint Therese has been with me kind of for forever. She was always a saint that I really looked up to as a child, as a young child, and someone who's been with me through different stages of life and different seasons. And as I, approached the age that she was when she died, it was kind of a really like full circle moment of really diving into her life and taking what she taught us and what she left behind in her theology and in her simple way of life, right? That we can still glean from today. Yeah, she's just been my gal pal, my my friend who I can always go to. Been there with, some sweet words, but also some, a kick in the pants when I need it, things like that. So she's been really great. And also, I wanted to share with you one or two of my favorite quotes from each of these saints. So, Saint Therese, there are so many quotes from all of these saints, but these two in particular really tell me a lot about her and a lot about what I love from her teachings that I really carry into my own life. So the first one is, holiness consists simply in doing God's will and being just what God wants us to be. Simple, right? As we can so often complicate our lives of holiness and so often contemplate just our lives in general. We have to have this morning routine and that morning routine, and we have to have the best meals because we have to be the best wives and mothers, or the best students, or the best young professionals we can be, and we can have no time for ourselves and no time to better ourselves, and learning about different things has to take a back seat because XYZ, right? Take a breath. This quote reminds us to take a breath and to simply quiet ourselves, to listen to the Lord's will and then do it, right? But we're not going to be able to figure out, or His will is not just going to come and lay itself in our lap. We have to become quiet and become simple so that we can hear it. We have to seek it out. It is there readily available for us, like so readily available, but we have to seek it out. And that's what I get from that quote of hers. And another one that I love of hers, of course, she's known as the little flower. Simplicity is kind of her thing. It's also my thing. I love to be simple. But this one, she says, Jesus, help me simplify my life by learning what you want me to be and becoming that person. It goes along exactly with the first quote. And it just goes to show that she really lived this way, right? She really lived this way of, how can I be more simple? Oh, does that mean I have to find out God's will and then do it? Okay. Like, let me become that person. We can busy ourselves with who we want to become and busy ourselves with learning new skills and all of these things, which in and of themselves aren't a bad thing. But if we're doing it to become something that is not of the Lord or just is indifferent to his will, then we're pretty far off track. And we want to get back to the place where we can hear his word and hear what his will is for us, so that we can become that person, and we can really dive into the things that he has in store for us. Okay, so that's a lot on Saint Therese, and we love her so much, but I have a lot of saints that I love. So we will jump into, and I'm sure you know this is coming, St. John Paul II. He's my man. He's here if you are watching in the video. He is, I have one picture of a saint on my wall that's pretty big, and it's JP2. And I joke often that he's my coworker, which is so true, because in a lot of ways I did, his work influences my work in a lot of ways. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. He was the Pope when I was born. He was the Pope when I was a child. I grew up learning about him. I used to think that, when you're a kid, and maybe you're a mom and you're experiencing this with your children right now, but when your kids start fighting naps and they're like 3, 4, right? Start fighting naps, and they come up with the craziest ideas of why they don't want to nap. I remember that I thought 2 things happened when I went to take a nap. My 2 favorite things. I thought that all the paint supplies came out and the grown-ups all painted because I was sleeping. So I wasn't a fan of taking naps because I would miss the painting. And secondly, I thought that every time I went to sleep, the Pope would come over. And the Pope being JP2. And I just wanted to hang out with him. So I would tell my mom, I don't want to take a nap. I am going to miss the Pope. And she'd be like, what is going on? Anyway, so my first memories of him were from a very young age. And then in the middle school-ish years, I was part of this group that another mom in our group started, who loved JP2 and loved his writings and studied him, and was able to bring together some of us young women and start teaching us different things that he taught on. We went through the theology of the body, we went through Mulieris Dignitatum and the letter to women, and all of these things that were so influential for women in the church and from JP2, and it was so influential to me as like middle school age and then high school age to really dive into these topics that were so formative for me, to have a foundation for my life to then move forward with. And so from a young age, he's been really a big part of my life, and I could not be more grateful for such a loving father and leader that we had in the church, and who was able to really contemplate, right? All of his works came from hours and hours and hours of contemplating and just sitting with the Lord, in front of the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, and just contemplating and coming to know the truth straight from the source. And then being able to articulate it in writing and hand it on to us. It is the biggest gift, and I am so grateful for it every day. Because he wrote a lot, picking a favorite quote of his is really hard. There are so many, but this one has been a favorite for a very long time. And so this is the one that I constantly go back to for a little kick in the pants, a little bit of get me going, um, you know, momentum, and things. So this quote from him, he says, "It is Jesus that you seek when you dream of happiness. He is waiting for you when nothing else you find satisfies you. He is the beauty to which you are so attracted. It is he who provoked you with that thirst for fullness that will not let you settle for compromise. It is he who urges you to shed the masks of a false life. It is he who reads in your heart your most genuine choices, the choices that others try to stifle. It is Jesus who stirs in you the desire to do something great with your lives, the will to follow an ideal, the refusal to allow yourselves to be ground down by mediocrity, the courage to commit yourselves humbly and patiently to improving yourselves and society, making the world more human and more fraternal." I mean, if that just doesn't nail the truth on the head, I mean, just so good. And I love that quote so much that I even put it on one of my products. My tote bag has the first words of that quote. It is Jesus that you seek when you dream of happiness, as an outward sign of what we experience and an outward sign of, you're going about your day, you're just doing your normal tasks and you're evangelizing through that, and letting people know that it is Christ who they seek when they seek happiness, because so often we, ourselves included, seek happiness in a lot of different places, and some of those are not so good, and some of them may not be bad necessarily in and of themselves, but in the fact that they are not Christ, then we're missing the mark a little bit. So I just love that as a reminder for us and for the world, our coworkers, our friends, our fellow students, our kids. Just that reminder is so, so great. Moving right along, another one of my favorite saints in my saint tribe is Saint Edith Stein. Saint Edith Stein was an amazing woman. She was a scholar. She was a philosopher. She was really, really smart. And she studied a lot. And she went through many phases. So, she was born and raised Jewish. She was in a Jewish family and, followed her Jewish faith for a while until she became atheist in her midlife. She died pretty young, so I want to say her late teen years, early 20s. She was pretty atheist, and part of that was her studies led her down that path of okay, does God exist and things like that. But again, through her studies and through her studying other things like Catholicism, she was won over and converted through her reason and through others who were able to show her the truth. And it took her a while after she was okay, I believe in it, but it took her a while even still to become baptized. And after that, she did realize that she had a religious vocation and entered the Carmelites. But she lived in a not so great time to be Catholic or Jewish. So she was during World War II, and she was taken, her and her sister, her biological sister, they were both Carmelite nuns. In, I think at this time, I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to say. I'm not really sure where they went. But they were taken back to, they were taken to Birkenau, which is, Auschwitz and Birkenau, they're across the street from each other, a concentration camp, and that's where she died. And so, although her life was shorter than it should have been, she did a lot in her studies, a lot of good for the church. She wrote a lot on women, and this was really a cool thing that she was able to leave us, because you didn't hear a lot of people in general devoting their lives to study, and specifically the study of women, especially at that time. And so what she was able to discover and just really delve up and hand on to us. It was really cool. And I'm constantly awed by her insight into these things and tying all these things together. She's a little bit difficult to read because she's very philosophical, but it is so worth it. And one of her very favorite quotes that I love from her, and that I try to remember every day, is this quote. She says, "Let go of your plans. The first hour of your morning belongs to God. Tackle the day's work that He charges you with, and He will give you the power to accomplish it." Wow, I need that reminder every day. My goodness. It is so easy for us to, right, make a morning routine and, because a lot of times our alarms go off and we press snooze. And please tell me I'm not the only one. But even though we press snooze and our bodies are too tired to get up, our brains are like, go. And it comes up with the 100-page to-do list of what you need to get done that day. And sometimes that is enough to get us out of bed and to start right away on the tasks that the day has for us. But in this quote, she's inviting us to give that up, to offer that first hour of the morning, which is a lot of times really hard because a lot of us value our sleep and we want to sleep as long as we can and still get all the things done that we want to get done. And she's inviting us to, even if it means getting up earlier or having your things wait until a little bit later, to offer that first hour of our morning back to the Lord, and He will give us all the time that we need. And He will give us the tasks that we need to do in order to accomplish what we need to do even faster. Like, I know this to be true, and I've heard of many, many people who have experiences with this and will tell you that He multiplies your time when you give it back to Him. And so that's something that I need to get better at, but something that we can always grow towards for sure. Some other favorite saints in my saint tribe are Saints Louis and Zélie Martin, which if you've never heard of them, I love telling people about them because, first of all, they are the parents of Saint Therese of Lisieux, and Saint Therese and one of her sisters is a saint, and I think another one is a blessed. So a very, very holy family. But that's not the only reason they're saints, right? That they raised saints. They were actually the very first couple to be canonized saints together. So there have been married saints before, right? A wife, a husband, and maybe they're both canonized, but never at the same time. And that is a really cool thing to, first of all, their demonstration of their marriage and their life together in their domestic church and in their vocation. That shows a lot of that, of what went on there. But it also speaks to each of them individually and how they raised their family and how they were holy in and of themselves, and lived a life of an example that encouraged others to be holy as well, like their children. And it's so cool to see that they were canonized at the same time for many reasons, but one of them being is that St. Louis outlived St. Zélie for many years. St. Zélie died when St. Therese was only about 4 years old. And so she didn't spend the majority of St. Therese's life with her, right? She died pretty early on in St. Therese's life. That does not mean that she was not a big influence. Absolutely not. Clearly. But it's not like they died super close together and then they were canonized, together because of that in any way. But they were really able to live their lives, and they're just a great example of individual holiness, but holiness within a marriage and within the family. And that's a great example for us all. And there are a couple of quotes here that I love, so I couldn't pick just one. The first one is, "The good Lord does not do things by halves. He always gives what you need. Let us then carry on bravely." That, if that doesn't just like lift some weight off your shoulders, I don't know what does. Because a lot of times we can just be so concerned with, I don't have everything I need and all of these things. And to that pain, they are saying, carry on. He will provide, right? In a very real and not in like a trite way of like, God will provide, right? But in a like, he doesn't do things by halves. He always gives us what we need. Carry on bravely. Like, let's do that. It's very rational. It's very just practical for our lives. So I love that one. Another one that I think is also very practical and very down to earth is, they say it is, these are from Zelly Martin, actually, both of these quotes, but she says, "It is necessary that the heroic becomes daily and that the daily becomes heroic." If that is not a quote that speaks to motherhood or family life, I don't know what does, right? There are so many tasks in our daily life that are mundane and routine, and no, our lives would not happen without them, but that doesn't make them easier all of the time. And so bringing that to the level of heroicism, like let those daily tasks become heroic. That is so cool. And that is so truly how our faith is lived. And that's how saints are made. She was onto something here. Okay, so the last one in my list for right now, like I said, I could go on and on forever about these saints, but the last one on my list for today is Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. Hopefully we will be calling him saint soon. Oh gosh, he is just so inspiring. His whole life was inspiring. He died really young, but he was from wealthy parents who in Italy who gave him all that he needed, right? All and more. And his parents would get mad at him when he would, his father would be a little bit frustrated when he would, transfer in his first class train ticket in for a third class ticket and give away the money to the poor. That's just the man he was. One of the coolest things about him was that he was so down to earth. He was loved and beloved by all of his peers. He wasn't like, that weird holy one or anything like that, but he also always challenged the people around him to be better, to be holier, to go to church, all of these things. I love the stories that of him that are just, his friends wanted him to go out with them. And he said, well, I'll go if you come to church with me first, right? Or something like that, where, he's not going to not go to the parties, but he's going to make sure that his friends and him go to mass first, right? First things come first. And he, of course, is very famous for saying to the heights, and that's his very famous saying. He was a mountain climber and just loved the outdoors. He's a very active young man, and he, again, like many saints, died too soon, but not that shortened his life of sanctity at all. He was such an inspiration to his peers and those around him, his family, the Italian people, to young people throughout the whole world. And I do hope that soon he is canonized, and that will be quite the party from the young people, from, all of us celebrating his life and his example to us for holiness. He has a lot of amazing quotes too. That's the thing with the modern saints, is that we had easier, more modern ways of capturing what they had to say. And so we have a lot of quotes for more modern saints and not so much from really old saints, but that's okay. We love them all equally. So he has a lot that he said, but one that always sticks out to me is to live without faith, without a heritage to defend, without battling constantly for truth, is not to live, but to get along. We never just get along. We must never just get along. I mean, wow, if that does not speak to our modern world and relativism and tolerance and all of these things, he is shooting that down once and for all at the very start. We need to be convicted by something, and it better be the truth. And he says it right there. We're going to be battling for the truth. But if we're not battling for the truth, something is really wrong, because that means we're indifferent and we're just getting along. And that is not what we are called to do as Catholics, as Christians, as human beings. We're called to stand up for the truth, constantly battle for it, and make all of the gospel and all of Christ's love known to all of our neighbors and our brothers and sisters. So I hope that this little peek into my little saint tribe was inspiring for you at all, to learn about more of these saints, or to think about your own saint tribe, who really inspires you. I would love to hear who really inspires you. So please shoot me a DM, send me an email, whatever the case may be. Let me know who is in your saint tribe, and I can't wait to chat with you again. Until next time.